Right, let's continue with type conversion. There are some issues when you're working with data types in one format and you need to change them into another format. For example, you have received an integer and probably don't want integers, so you have received a string from the user input and you don't want it. And in most cases, you may encounter these problems when probably you need to, calculate dynamically something, for example, age of a person, and the input function, which we've seen it in a previous part, takes everything as a string. So you need to convert whenever probably you don't want strings, you want, let's say, integers, or you want float, or you want anything else. So for example, we have a case here. We want to modify our program or problem above to let customers enter their date of birth, and then we want to calculate the IS. So if we have birth date as, let me put it this way, it's the best practice. If we have a birth date and we want to get it from the user, and we say input, and we specify year of birth. Year of birth. We don't want the exact date, we just want to get the year, right? So remember, we saw that you can receive inputs using this way, and we want to calculate the age. So we want to say age is equal to, this is 2022. So how do you get the age once you're given a particular year? So you just get the current year minus the input, sorry, the input value that has been, or the input year that has been supplied by the user. And they want to print by saying, wow, your age is this much. Okay, just say age, right? You want to print the age of somebody. So once we run this, we're going to end up in a problem, because this is an integer, while birth date, which I've received it from here, is not an integer. Well, it can be written as an integer, but it's not, in fact, because anything that's captured using the input function is a string. So let me show you this. After running this, we're going to run into a problem. Our year of birth, let's say 1990, right? Or 1995, right? And once we run that, well, nothing works. I'm going to pause this for a few minutes before continuing so I can deal with something here. All right, so we have our program like this, and we want to, calculate the age. So once we run it, it will ask us to put the year of birth, let's say 1996, right? Once you run that, you end up in a problem which is called type error, unsupported operand type for int and a string. So we are trying to do some minus or some subtraction between an integer and a string. As I said, input takes string, not regardless of whatever you supply, whether you supply a boolean or string or an integer, to regard them as strings. So that's the reason. So how do you deal with this problem? So let's modify it a bit, and I'm going to copy it down here. Now we need to do some conversion, because we're dealing with integers. So you have to put all this function of inputting into an integer. So what you do is int, and then you embrace this into a bracket. So everything that's received is automatically converted into an integer. Once you run this, then you can see it's running through. So we put 1996. Once you run, the year is 26. So anyone who is born in 1996 is now 26 years old. Okay. All right. Let's do this minor exercise. It's actually for you. Ask a customer to supply the weight of the rice they have bought, probably using our grocery store system. So someone has bought in has bought rice in kilograms and you want to convert it into tons, right? And now print the results on the terminal. Pause the video for a few minutes and then come back. All right. What do we do with this? So we need to get weight of the rice that someone has bought in terms of kilograms, and then we can convert it to. So we can say weight of rice, or rice weight, of course, is equal to, we want to ask someone to supply, so we let them input, excuse me, we let them input and we say what, sorry, we need to put into quotes, what is the weight of the rice, and even specify in kg, right? So they can supply that weight, okay? And then, excuse me, and then we want to convert it into tons, right? Now, what's the formula for converting it in tons? Oh, let me put this way: weight in, let me say weight in kg, and say here we have weight in ton. Just say ton. Now we want to do calculations. How do you convert kg into tons? One ton is equal to 1,000 kg. So if you want to get a ton, you could get weight in kg divided by weight, or divided by 1,000. So you get, you know, in terms of ton. That's it. And then we can print weight in ton. Print weight in ton. Right? Now, will this work? Let's try it. If it doesn't work, then you can tell me what's the problem here, right? Let's run it. So what's the weight of the rice you bought? Let's say you have bought 500 kilograms. You just write 500. You don't need to put kg. If you try to run that, you will see there's an error. And you're trying to divide, you see this a symbol for division, a string and an integer. Here we have 1,000 as an integer, and you have gotten weight in kg as a string. So you need to put some conversion here, so you can go ahead that way. And once you run it, we had 500 kg. Once you run it, it is 0.5 ton. Boom, that's it. So it's quite straight. How you can input some variable, some values in certain measure, and then you can convert it into something else. So that is generally the data types that we have seen using variables, but we can go straight into strings, which is of more interest because strings has a lot of issues to deal with, and you need to be careful when dealing with the strings. Now, suppose we have a name like Pata Pata, and this is someone's name, maybe the owner. Let me use the owner's name, owner of a grocery, let's say, or a store. And the store name is called Pata Pata Grocery Store. Now, what if we want something else? You see, I've used, as I said from the beginning, with variables, you can use single quote, or double quote. Now, for this case, I've used the single quote. You have someone like, owner's name is Pata Pata, and their store name is called Pata Pata Grocery Store. Now, what if the name of the store is called Pata Pata's Grocery Store, right? We're getting a problem here because if you can see, Jupiter is highlighting in red whatever you're putting quotes. Now, it will assume that your string is ending up at this point. Now, if you try to print, store, right, which is this one for this case. Well, you can print store here, you can get the results, but if you print, you need to print here, print store. right? Let me comment out this by using a hash. If you print store here, there's no problem. Which will just run. Something is wrong here. Well, I need to comment out this as well before proceeding. Patapata's grocery store, right? Now, I had this issue here. Now we have changed a little bit our store into this. Let me comment out this. I don't need it. Let me comment out this. I don't need it. And I want to print this Patapata's grocery store. Let me run it. You see, it is complained as an invalid syntax because we have put an end to the string, but we continue writing, right? How do we resolve that one? For this case, if you have a single quote within your string, you need to use double quotes, okay? So we can change this to Patapata as something like store, is equal to, you can put into double quotes, Patas. You can now use single quote without complaint. Grocery store. You see, and once you print this one, let me comment out this and this. I don't need it. And print now store. You could see there is no complaint, and you can see the single quote in here. It's captured quite well. So you need to be careful when dealing with strings, and observe where there's single quote and where there's double quotes, and you need to be quite careful with them. And what if there's double quotes in our Patapata's grocery store, right? Something like this, right? Something like store equals to what? Okay, we said we are using double quotes. We want to put that Patapata grocery store. Well, let me put it this way. I don't want to put it in a. I just want this. Okay. How do I put something like this into a variable called the store? That's the question. So whenever you meet, something like that, what do you do? Well, for this case, it's easy. Use a single quote again. So instead of having something like this, you can add a single quote here, and at the end, once you try to run this, let me remove this. I don't want it. Now, if you try to print this, if you want to print store here, you will see, let me comment out this, I don't want problems. You will see Patapata is in quotation after running. You see Patapata grocery store. So you need to understand these dynamics when you're trying to quote some strings or to trying to initiate variables for a string, whether there is a single quote within that text or there's double quote within that text. And what if there are multiple lines? Well, you can just use triple quotes. For example, let's say we have a store, we have, description. Let me use description is equal to, and you wanna move across several lines. So you use triple quotes. And how do you get the triple quotes? Something like this. Okay. Now you can say this is da, right? And when you see this, these are in 3 different lines, and you want to print them, you can say print description. Run it. Wow, you can see there are in several lines. Oh, bingo. So that's a straight way to working with strings. You just need to know what kind of string you have, and you can deal with it straight away. I think we are together at that point. I'm commenting out this for the records. as you go through these notes, or you can try to test and see how this works. I'm sure you're gonna get this file I'm working on here after I've uploaded it to the YES website. So there are several other characteristics of strings. For example, you want to get an index of a string, right? You want to get an index of a certain character in a string. For example, you want to get the index of this first character or the index of this A here, right? How do you do that? So this in some way, some approaches you can work with means you can manipulate strings. For example, you want to get the first character. We access them using index. So you use these codes here, right? And then the first indexes all start with 0. I'm sure for that some of you who have done some computing or some computing courses, you will agree with me that any index starts with 0. So for index 0, you can do something like this, right? And if you want to print it straight, you can say, well, I just want to print it something like this. Or I can put it, I can give it a variable. You don't need to give it a variable. You can just let it go like that and print it straight from that. What if I run? What do I get? P. You see, it's showing that the index at 0 is P. What if I get index at, let's say, 2, which is 0, 1, 2. I'm expecting to get T. Let me run it. Well, that's T. And what if I put minus? Let's say index at -1. Okay, what do I get? Boom, who can guess? That's E. Where is E? Is it this E here or this E at the end? In fact, it is E at the end. So it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3 up to the end. But if you start from the beginning, from the end, right, and coming backwards, you start from -1, that's the last character, -2, -3, -4, -5. So if we want to say -2, for instance, should be, okay, -1, -2, -3, which is O, -4, -5. Let me put -5. I think it should be S. Yes, that's S. So Patapata's Patapata grocery store. So from the end, we normally start with -1. And then we come backwards. From the beginning, we start with 0, index 0, and then we go forward. So you can play around with in that way. So that's one way. Another way is you can also, you can also give a range. You want, let's say, a character from index, let's say 0 to 5. So you don't need to, get just a single character. You still use the same. And you can say from index 0 up to, use this full column, let's up to index 5, and see, let's see what we get. When you print it out, and you say print, okay, something like that. That's pattern. So that is from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? It doesn't include 5. It goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, excluding 5. So if when you say from index 0 to index 5, it doesn't include the 5th index. It includes up to the 4th index. That's why instead of including 1, I mean A here, it went up to P, which is, in fact, once you count them, it's like you have 5 characters, right? So, and you don't have to start from 0. You can start from, let's say, 1. And let's say it goes up to 7 or any number. And once you run, you see they start from 1. A is 1, it goes up to somewhere here, right? And another thing you may not want to, show the end. Let me say I just want from, let's say it's, from 4 up to the end, for instance, right? So I don't need to know what exactly is at the end. So I just put from 4 to the rest. So if you run that, you will see pata, or just pata is 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, and 3 are left out, and it's starting at this part up to the end, right? Great. So another thing you could do is, you may not even specify anything. You can say, print, yes, print store, but we don't want to specify what index we want. So this will bring everything. If you run it, you'll see it's getting everything. Well, this is mostly useless because you don't want to print something like this, which is equal to just printing store. It is the same. It will bring everything. So this is more, for the most part, not used if in search. Let me run it. You see, this is not that much used, but you can specify the last element. For example, if you specify the last element, let's say I want up to element 8, so to assume it is from 0 to 7, excluding the 8th one. So if you print that one, you could say something like pata. That's it. So that's the way you can play with strings. In some way, you can get a certain character at a certain index of a range of indexes and stuff like that. You can try this one. You have pata as a name, and you want to print from 1 to -1. What will you get? Who can guess? Wow, you can guess at your own. But let me run this and see. You see, it is starting from the first index, which is A. The 0 index was P, and then up to -1, which is the last element. If you have put, like, say, -2, if you run it, you see we are skipping. This was -1, this was -2, so we are skipping we are skipping the first 2 elements. I mean, we are ending at this point. So that's great. So I hope you're together, and let's pause for a few moments, and then we'll come back to continue with formatted